first thing in the morning, because this is when we like to serve them Chop, because I know they're going to be hungry, and I know that if I do introduce new things, they're going to be hungry enough to try it. So first thing in the morning is always a great time to introduce Chop to them. And I put water in their sleep cages so they're not dehydrated, but also in the morning they do like to eat the more hydrating foods, so this is when they'll really enjoy it. And because this is outside of their cage, this also gives them a chance to do their big morning poo, like here, and keep their cages relatively clean throughout the day. Like I said before, the perches that I like to use for Chop are one of these, and that is because, I'm just gonna focus it right here, and that is because I said this in the day in the life video already, but I don't like to feed them Chop inside the cage because you could miss a piece or two and it could mold and make your birds vulnerable to getting aspergillosis. My vet always recommends that always feed your birds Chop in a supervised condition, either outside of the cage in a play perch or somewhere else in the house. And if you're gonna do it in the cage, make sure you do a very thorough inspection of the cage afterwards. And you can see Lemon enjoying his little Chop right here. And just about the way that I make my Chop, you can see that the pieces are relatively big. I don't use a food processor or anything. Like it was shown earlier in the video, I just manually cut all the pieces myself. And that is because, as you can see over here, my birds at least really like to grab onto their food, like large chunks of their food, and work their way through it like this. I think personally it is good for them because it simulates what they would have in nature more closely. You know, they don't get finely processed, finely cut pieces of food in nature. This is more likely what they'll encounter. And I find that it is more fun for them, and they're much more likely to stay eating longer when I serve them food this way. And of course Bella, who was, you know, co-narrating the video with me the entire time, is right over here. Our Chop delinquent, and she's gonna probably just stay here talking for a bit until the food comes to room temperature, and then she'll eat it. That is one tip that our vet gave us that was actually really incredibly helpful, was that birds do not eat cold food in the wild. So when you serve them cold vegetables or cold grains, they're much less likely to eat it. And this was a very helpful tip for us, because a lot of vegetables that we thought that they didn't like, actually it turned out they didn't eat because it was probably too cold for them. So once we started leaving the Chop out maybe for 5 to 10 minutes before we served it to them, we really saw a difference in how much they liked Chop and how much they were likely to eat without, you know, throwing a fit for the first 10 to 20 minutes. And now I know why they were throwing a fit. So here is Bella working away on her food. I do find that Bella tends to throw away a lot of the food, so it's always good to give them a little more Chop than you think that they would eat. After they finish their Chop, whatever that's left in their bowl gets thrown away, and we do give them about 1 hour to 1 hour and a half in the morning to finish their Chop, but whatever is remaining after that gets thrown away. That's why I like to make maybe 2 or 3 servings of Chop for the 3 birds at a sitting. And even if you have your vegetables in the fridge, they can still go bad, and we've had this happen to our sweet peas before. So always just never prepare more than 2 to 3 servings, and just keep it in your fridge, serve it for them, and then just throw out whatever's remaining. Always remember to smell your vegetables before you give it to them, in case you give them any bad vegetables. And the other thing I wanted to mention is make sure you have 1 big toy per feeding perch for your birds, and that is so that they can go back and forth between their toy and their food and not get too bored. Because what happened before we did this is they would just fly off or scream, and they would be just so miserable sitting on their eating perch for 1 hour, because they're not going to eat continuously for 1 hour. That's just unreasonable to expect from them. They're just like children, you know, focusing for a long time might be more difficult for them. At the same time, you don't want to hang too many fun toys on your feeding perch, because then they'll become very distracted. And this is especially for cases where you have a young bird who, well, we're very lucky with him because he was actually fed Chop before he came to us. But like a rescue bird like Bella, who wasn't fed Chop properly before, or Happy, who wasn't fed Chop at all before she came to us. So for birds like this, it is really important where you create an environment where they can really focus on their food, eat, and enjoy their food and learn that it's a good thing. So you don't want to hang too many toys, a source of distraction. At the time, you don't want to torture them by putting them on there without anything else to do except to eat their chocolate, which they're not going to do for an hour. So now we're gonna start preparing our chop, and the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna boil the water. And for the grains, we're gonna use I'm gonna use barley for today, and then I'm gonna use quinoa, and then I'm just going to cook it here. And oh yeah, and then I'm also going to add some vegetable pasta that we bought. And I'm just gonna cook it here. Our parrots like our grains a little al dente, so the ratio of water to grains that we're gonna use is 2:1. And one thing that I love is Ziploc bags, and these are all the grains that we use for today. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put all these grains into one big Ziploc bag, and then that's where I'm gonna keep it until I'm done with them, because I don't like to mix our food with the parrots' food, just because I know that I'm pretty clumsy with my food. I'm not the neatest person, but with my parrots' food I'm gonna be extra careful, because I'm very worried about things like mold or any kind of fungal growth, or anything that could potentially contaminate it in any way. And I know if they're in a Ziploc bag and labeled, I will be extra careful with them. So start of my chop prep is always sweet potatoes, and my parrots actually used to hate sweet potatoes, and only recently did I find out that it was completely my fault. Sweet potatoes are an excellent source of vitamin A, so it is really important to give it to them. But I just didn't used to give it to them because my parents would just throw them to the ground and they hated it. And then when I told this to the bird sanctuary owner that I got lemon from, she actually did like the the naughty girl finger to me. She was like, I can't believe you don't feed it to them. And then she showed me how she preps it, and basically she microwaves the sweet potatoes, so about this much it'll be microwaved for about 3 to 4 minutes, and then she feeds it to them soft. So I tried that on my parrots and they loved it. So if you find that your parrots are not eating sweet potatoes, maybe try that, and that has worked really well for us. And these are the vegetables that are gonna go into their chop. You can see that I have 1 baby cucumber, 1 baby bell pepper, I have about a handful of sweet peas, and maybe like half a handful of these snow peas. I have 3 romaine heart leaflets and about a handful of baby carrots. And this is going to last my 3 parrots about 3 servings, along with the grains that just finished right now, and of course the sweet potatoes in the microwave. And the reason why I only make this much, as I mentioned in another video of ours, is because I don't want to freeze the food, first of all, because when you thaw them, they lose their crunchy texture, and I do find that it is not as enjoyable for the parrots, and I feel bad serving it to them. And then the other reason is if you make more than 3 servings and you're just keeping it in the fridge, by the time your 3rd serving is done, you're going to notice that your vegetables are a little soggy and they're just not in good condition. And some of them, especially, because I'm also going to be adding a half a handful of these beans over here, which they love. This one. And yeah, they're gonna go sour if you keep them for more than like a few days. So it's always just good to make a little bit at a time, and it takes no time to prepare them anyway. Okie dokie, so I've chopped my vegetables, and you can see that none of the pieces are larger than the size of basically the tip of my little pinky finger. Ta-da! And that's because I want them to kind of have fun with the vegetables, like it's really fun for them to grab it with their little feet and kind of dig into it as they eat it. It's nice to use a food processor, but I don't know about you, but we come from pretty modest means and we don't own a food processor. But I don't find that it is necessary to cut the vegetables into really tiny little pieces. When I first started feeding chops to parrots, the very first chop I made actually was like very finely cut. And the parrots didn't like it. They would just throw everything everywhere. So the next day, completely coincidentally, I was feeling a little lazy and I gave them larger pieces of chop. And I found that they actually liked it a lot more, especially our African gray. So since then, I've just been keeping the chops this size and it's been working really well for us. And another thing that I do add to my chop is I add a little bit of berries. Berries, especially blackberries and blueberries and raspberries, which we're not adding today because the ones in the shop are very moldy and gross, are very high in antioxidants and they're good for your parrots, sure, but they're also sugary compared to the vegetables. My experience with the berries is if I give them a lot, they usually get bad, they don't behave as well, and then they get groggy, almost kind of like children who had a little bit too much candy. So what I do now is I just give them a little bit of berries with their chop. This is gonna be their 3 servings of berries, and that's it. And another thing that I wanted to mention, this is my poor hubby holding the grapes for you right now. And grapes are sugar and water essentially, but they're used for one purpose. Birds don't usually like to drink when they're in transport. So when they're being transported in a car, they don't love drinking water. So if you put really watery things like grapes and apples, they'll eat it in the car. And it's a great way for them to get hydrated and not get really, really thirsty if they're going for longer drives. For an example, the drive to our vet is 2 hours. And when we picked up Lemon, the drive there and back was over 8 hours. So this is actually a tip that we got from the person that we got Lemon from. And it was a really wonderful tip. So we use it now and it's been working really well. So this is the chop all mixed together with the sweet potatoes and the grains now and the berries and all the vegetables that I just showed you being chopped. And yeah, the birdies love this. This is what they're gonna eat tomorrow. And the last thing that we add to this is the things from our own garden. We call it our parrot garden, which is our little indoor apartment garden. And we have different herbs and we have different vegetables and berries and greens there. So that is going to be in a whole other video because we have a lot of different plants to show you. And I didn't want to end today's video without talking about pellets. And the reason for that is because although everybody talks about how good chop is, in the wild, birds have access to a very wide variety of different fruits and vegetables that we are not able to provide for them here. And really the only way you can assure that you're giving them the adequate amount of vitamins and minerals and amino acids is either by using supplements, which is a little more difficult, or using pellets. Our vet has recommended that you use at least 60% pellets, but it should probably be more. And pellet training is difficult for a lot of parrot owners, so maybe we'll do a video on that later. But it is definitely important that you have pellets available for your birds in their cages at all times. And you can have a designated chop time in the day, but otherwise they should be eating their pellets. So for our bigger birds, we have the bigger size pellets and we have the smaller size pellets for Happy, who's a green cheek conure. And we're using this for our Myers parrot also right now, but we're probably going to transition him into the larger pellets as he gets a little older, and he's already starting to show interest in the larger pellets and trying to steal his sister's food, so that's actually very cute. The reason why the pellets that we feed them are colorless is because when we give them pellets with color, Bella loves red and pink. So she will pick out just the red and the pink pellets and throw all the other pellets just all across her cage, across the room, or whatever other little corner that she can find. It was very difficult to clean. But other than that, we actually had a scare with Bella's poo because one time it came out really, really red. And then we noticed that Happy's poo also came out really, really red. And then we freaked out. And then we realized that, hey, wait a second, actually, the only pellets that they're eating are red pellets, and that's why their poo is red. So as soon as we switched them to these pellets, we realized that their poo went back to its normal, you know, like the brownish, slightly greenish color, and our vets were very happy with it. So these pellets without any color additives gives you a chance to monitor their poo, which is really important for monitoring their health. and also for keeping your house a little cleaner, which is not a bad thing. And you're gonna see these foraging toys over here. And you can get this from a variety of stores, like you can order them from Amazon and you can order from Bed Bath & Beyond. Just make sure that they're from reputable pet stores, reputable brands. And they're all made of acrylic, which is safe for parrots, and it tends to be more durable as well. And we have different ones, like this one, they have to figure out how to pull the drawers to get their food. This one's a little more difficult, I'll be honest with you guys, nobody likes this one. And basically they pull it one level at a time and get their treat all the way to the bottom so that they can eat it. Couldn't get anyone to be interested in this. And this one's a very simple one. It has like all these different shaped holes, and some of the holes are larger than others. And really there is only a few where the beak will actually fit. So that's kind of the fun of these. And this is Bella's favorite, and that's why you still see food in it. And you have to kind of spin the wheel to get to the area that has pellets and eat it. So she's done with this one, and then she'll have to move it to this one, and so on and so forth. And these are for Happy, so the toys are smaller. And this one, she has to basically make sure all her food's down at the bottom so she can stand here and eat it through this little hole over here. And this is the same as the larger bird system. And the reason why having some foraging toys sometimes is important is you will notice that in the colder months in particular, the birds will be less interested in eating. With Bella, she is not very interested in eating pellets pretty much all the time. She's even less interested in eating chop, but she's not very interested in eating pellets either. And we find that providing her with these foraging toys makes her more interested in eating and makes the whole eating experience a little more fun for her. So she loves this wheel, and since then she's been eating a lot more pellets than usual. And we just weighed her today and she's gained 10 grams, which is amazing. So we were so happy about that. And this for Happy and Lemon right now, we don't need it. But I know that a few months ago when it was colder, Happy used to use this one because she just kind of lost interest in eating. And now that it's warmer, I think she just has more zest for life and she's eating a little better. So we use regular bowls for her.
This is Bella's chop in the morning. Lemon is a mean bird and he's eating her chop. Bella seems okay with this. Normally she's possessive about her food. For example, if I eat her food, just because I ate it, she'll want to eat it.
Oh my God,
look at Lemon. Lemon's a little baby and he's chasing a full-grown African gray away. And yeah, it looks like they can share the food. Oh no.
You can put Lemon back in his perch. She's being a baby.
Yeah, sure, I'll do that. Lemon. Step up, Lemon. Good boy. Eat your own chop. Eat your own chop.
Good boy, Lemon.
And here's Bella. She started to eat her chop. Seems to be enjoying it. She's the most finicky of our birds. Good, Bella. Good job, Bella. And here is Happy. What you eating there? Big red pepper. Yeah, we find that giving them a variety of sizes of the food in the chop is really helpful. Happy normally likes smaller pieces, but she does occasionally like the bigger pieces. Bella, for the most part, likes bigger pieces, but Happy likes a variety. And there you go. There's a little piggy Happy eating her morning chop.